Debo deserves the bag. Debo will get the bag. But are the 49ers going to give him the bag? We're going to talk about that and more with Jose Sanchez right now. Stay tuned. What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk TV on this beautiful Saturday morning. I'm your host, So Real Sunil, and you know, if it's Saturday morning, I got the man, the myth, the legend, the prettiest writer on all 40. Every single time, man, I gotta come up with some new way of introducing you, bro. Another mother. Mr. All 49ers SI senior writer, Jose Sanchez. Brother, how you doing today, man?
What you from Telemundo? No. No. I remember freaking growing up. I used to always do the little sound voices when I used to have be like better with my Spanish. I used to always be like, Señor Sanchez. I used to say something when I Telemundo en vivo.
Bro, those Telemundo commercials and the way like the way that they that announcer that does the play-by-play for the soccer games, epic. And then they had that show. And bro, they had that show called Caliente on Telemundo. It was I think on Saturday mornings. Bro, it was like Soul Train, but on the beach. It was like MTV Spring Break, like every single weekend. I used to watch it because the music was fire and the women were beautiful, bro. It was like my type of show. But I digress. Jose, obviously some drama in 49ers world. Clearly when news is low, somehow the 49ers are still going to make something happen. And obviously, there's some turmoil in contract negotiations with Debo and the 49ers. Clearly, they are not on the same page as far as what those numbers look like. Debo seems to take it to his negotiations and scrub his IG with all 49ers. You know, anything that he had tying him to the 49ers is no longer on his IG. He's still posting on there. He's still, training. He's still posting stories. So it is very, very interesting. And I thought we'd break it down, but just overall, before we go into in depth about it, Jose, what were your initial thoughts about it? I mean, I do have to give credit where credit is due. You were one of the first people that talked about when it came to contract negotiations and an extension that there is a possibility that maybe Debo could be traded. You got killed for those takes. People were going at your throat for being clickbait. And now fast forward a couple weeks later, Debo scrubbed all 49ers stuff off of his IG, looking like it's more and more like a possibility that there may be trouble in paradise. So what were your initial thoughts other than just straight vindication over all these haters that thought you were just bringing up something out of nothing?
Well, you saw a bunch of people saying like, "Oh, he's just deleting it. It's fine." Like, oh, okay, you just think that's not weird that he's just doing that out of nowhere? I mean, Kyler Murray did that, and then sure enough, I mean, yeah, he wasn't moved, but the thing is, he wasn't supposed to get traded. He's not gonna get traded. He's a quarterback, and it's just the thing is that wasn't the scenario. Literally a week after or something like that, after he scrubbed his timeline, that's when all the reports are coming out. Was it Mortensen even that went that far? So if it's Mortensen, I think, who reported that, talking about like something about his immaturity issues or whatever it was with Kyler, like that, then all of a sudden things starts to leak and it's like, whoa, there was something there.
Right.
There might be something here. I'm not drawing 1,000% conclusion, but I'm also not going to like lean towards the other way. I think there's more of the conclusion that there's something going on. He's probably PO'd. I mean, we saw Peter Schrager say it, that, hey, like he's a little bit annoyed. He's a little upset right now. And that's probably because he's impatient. He doesn't realize that he knows that the Niners can give him a contract right now. He's seeing it right now with the teams on the wide receiver market with Tyreek Hill, Devante Adams, Brandon Cooks, Stephon Diggs, and then just in general, just like a deal is getting done. So he knows that the 49ers can get it done right now. They can. But they never operated that way. So Deebo, now it's time for you to be patient. It's time for you. I mean, be as patient as you were when you got locked up in that elevator for that hour or two in Las Vegas. So you
Well,
gotta be.
let's talk about first, because we're gonna get into more in depth, Jose. But I want to talk because a lot of people are drawing similarities to the Kyler stuff and the Deebo stuff, and here's where I think it's a little bit different. Like Kyler just scrubbed his whole IG, right? He took everything off of it and then posted like just 2 pictures that had nothing to do with the Cardinals. Deebo didn't delete all of the pictures off of his IG. And if anybody has used IG, you have to go one by one to actually delete. There's not like a mass like delete, it's different when you just delete everything. Deebo literally sat in his wherever he was on his phone and went picture by picture by picture, delete anything that had 49ers in it. So the level of petty that is, and the level of dude, I mean, I'm not as big into social media as like a Debo or something. I'm a lot older than Debo and stuff like that. But like, to have that much energy for Debo, who's just living the best life, right? He, and all this kind of stuff, to go picture after picture, go scrub his Instagram. That's a level of anger that I think people are just like brushing under the rug, and they're like, oh man, this is just a negotiating ploy. I mean, I don't know how this helps in negotiations.
It doesn't.
Because it's not like Debo has kind of much of like any type of leverage, because he is under contract and they can franchise him a couple of times. So it's not like he could just walk away. Like, his only options really are not play, and that's it, right? So that him taking it off is kind of just, I think, in his mind, or at least showing that he doesn't need the 49ers. Like, that he's okay with not being a 49er. And I think if I'm a fan, which I am, that is something big, right, Jose? Because like as much I guess connection that Debo has had, like, I mean, he's changed the way that the 49ers walk out of the tunnel. He's changed the type of energy that this team has. They've started becoming more hip hop, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that has to do with Debo, his infectious personality. You see Trent Williams swagging out a little bit more. Like, he had a monster season with all of that swagger and stuff. So I think it is something more than what, some fans are just like, oh, you guys are dumb. You take this stuff too seriously.
Yeah, and I think back to when the reason why I wrote the article of could Debo be traded, it wasn't so much because, like, I mean, of course it was looking at, the trees for the whole forest and like, hey, look, if Adams and Hill can get traded, Debo can get traded. But it was also because of these negotiations are going to be so complicated. I already knew it was going to be complicated. It's such a tuck and pull here of a tug of war between the two sides. It's just, I mean, and I know we're going to get into it in a little bit later for each side here, but it's just the complications of the negotiations. I was so interested and intrigued, and I'm like, one side's going to have a set on a high number. The other side is not, can they find that middle ground? Is that middle ground too much? So that's why I think why he's probably annoyed. Maybe there's already been some feelers and understanding of why he's not, or why he knows he's not going to get paid or something, or he knows what the ballpark number is, he's not happy with it, or whatever the case may be. Like you said, he's going specifically towards Niners affiliated post. And even me, I mean, I'm only 27 now, and so I mean, I'm not big on social media like that either. But I know the power of it amongst people my age and younger, and that's like a huge tool. So it's not a negotiation tactic. He's very lost if you think that's going to help him. But what it does do is it's a signifier. It gets people like us talking, and whether he's trolling us or not, it does look like something, because the point is he intended to do something, whether just to make the Niners a talking point or whatever, just get his message out there, a little smoke signal that he's upset. I mean, that's pretty much all it's doing.
For sure. And we're definitely going to get into it. Harry Murillo, thanks for joining the show. Did you guys hear the news that Gaskins passed away in a car accident? It's actually Haskins. Gaskins is the running back from Miami. So we do want to make sure, Dwayne Haskins, quarterback for the Steelers, former quarterback for Washington, Ohio State, stud quarterback, passed away. RIP. Definitely, want to send prayers and, to his family. Clearly a guy that, was taken away from this world too young, but fortunately, life happens, man. That's why, Jose, I love you, bro. I just want you to know, we never, you never know when we're going to be taken off of this planet. So definitely prayers up the
Yeah, it's
Haskin
fucked up, to be
family.
honest. For lack of a better
Yeah,
term, that sense of him.
yeah, host Ohio State family, Pittsburgh family, especially
24
any of
moves.
us that have played team sports before, there is a different camaraderie that's built with players. And when you see someone, lost that way, definitely, definitely sad story. So RIP to Haskins, and hopefully, the Pittsburgh family can, heal sooner than later. But let's move on to kind of, and a lot of people are having their opinions about this, Jose, as far as when it comes to the Deebo situation. And I kind of want to just break it down so that we could have like both sides clearly defined as far as where both sides are coming from. Because here's the thing, like John Lynch made it very, very clear in his combine interview that Debo and Nick Bosa were already budgeted in the plans, right? So that makes me assume exit interview. Okay, was that the exit interview? But I think
Even
he
farther
also
back. That's worse.
well, he also mentioned it in the combine, talking about Debo's going to be here for a while. Like they did talk about that, right? That they're planning on making Debo a 49er for a long time.
That's
So
awesome.
in my mind, that makes me believe at least there's a number that they know that they're willing to pay Debo. So I don't think this is about them feeling like Debo shouldn't get money. But let's talk about from the perspective of the team, Jose. What is their mindset as far as not getting this extension done right away, especially when we're seeing the wide receiver market consistently get reset with every wide receiver that is getting a new contract?
Yeah, and I think I want to point out a tweet that Akash made out because it was a great point. It's reflecting on what the Niners have done in their past, or just since Kyle Shanahan has taken over with their contracts. And to me, the whole thing, when it comes to Debo, I think personally the Niners know APY. Who cares about APY? Honestly,
Right.
that's always been my thing. Yes, it affects the cap when you get to that point of past the guarantees. But to me, it's like it's the guarantees because you're tattooed with that on your salary cap for however many years you have it set or loaded to, whatever the situation is. So to me, guarantees is all that matter. I can give one less F's about APY. So the highest guarantees the 49ers have handed out is ever. It was Jimmy Garoppolo at $48.7 million. Following that, the best left tackle in the game, and Trent Williams at 40. Then Eric Armstead, 34.1, George Kittle at 30, and Fred Warner at 27. Damn, Freddie Warner at 27. That's a jug. I mean, look, all those positions that I just listed off are way more impactful than a wide receiver. I mean, look, that's not fair. I wouldn't just dumb it down to a wide receiver because obviously he wasn't a wide receiver last year. He was a wide back.
But remember, you're doing it from the team's perspective, right? So maybe that's what they do think. Maybe they are thinking that a wide receiver isn't as impactful as these other players position.
But here's the thing: if I'm the team, I'm thinking of him as a running back because it's cheaper. That's why. That's why I think they're going to try to where they're going to try to spin it. So from the mindset of the 49ers, hey, we want to pay you. Of course, you always want to hold on to your homegrown talent, especially someone who's really rise up in the ranks and has improved pretty much every year and finally made it to that stardom hood. But with him, I just think their mindset is, like I said, like I'm going to keep standing on, like they're not going to want to make him the highest paid or even close to that. They're going to want to bridge something of the top highest paid running back and somewhere of a kind of a one top of the paid wide receiver, because their case is going to be, it's a tale of two halves or two seasons essentially for Debo last year. The first half of the season, he was predominantly wide receiver, right? He pretty much was. He was knocking on the door of what 1,000 yards by like week 10, week 9, something like that. But whatever.
Yeah, he was like consistently the number one in yards, or at least top two for the first half of the season.
Yeah, so that was where it was most usage. He was predominantly wide receiver. Then, once the team went 3-5 or whatever, they're facing the Rams in week 10. And then they made that random switch to Debo where it's just like, my God, this guy has a home run carry every time he get the ball in his hands. And then they just didn't look back. And you see the difference of him and his impact on the team. So they could say, look, Debo, you pretty much notched almost 1,000 yards, when you're predominantly a wide receiver, you're productive, but it wasn't helpful for the team like that. As soon as we made the switch to you, to running back, all of a sudden, boom. So hence you're more of a running back. We want to pay you more of a top running back scale and then increase that more with the not one of the top wide receiver salaries or guarantees, but somewhere close to that line. So that's why I think you're itching more to that, that 50 to 60, if even they're thinking that, but that 50 to 60 guarantee range. And mine's is like, that's a pretty broad range. And then you just juice up the APY just to make them feel better. So that way, you're just letting them know, like, hey, look, the guarantees don't feel that way because, again, you're the 49ers. Look, 2020, bro, you weren't there. Sure, a handful of games you were there, but ultimately you weren't there. You were injured twice. Don't forget the season. He broke his foot like in June or May, whatever, doing off-season workouts in Nashville. Was it Nashville? Whatever, off-season, off-site, which is probably why, on the 49ers perspective right now, why they're not trying to rush into a deal with him right now, because they remember, dude, 2 years ago you were just injured doing training, and all of a sudden we give you that money. Now it's like, great, we just spent all that. So to me, that's why I think they're looking at from running back, wide receiver mix. They love him, they appreciate him, they know his worth. And like you said, they budgeted it for him, but then again, that was before all those deals happened. So that definitely had to have changed some things. So you're the 49ers, you're probably trying to stick firm because they have their own value price point, and I sincerely doubt they're going to touch anywhere close to that $70 million guaranteed range.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree so much with the wanting to pay him or use that running back aspect to kind of lower his money. I mean, I understand why you might think that, and I guess if a team was gonna be an a-hole about it, they would go about that route. But I truly don't think that they're thinking that way. But I do think that there are a lot of things that you said that are very valuable, and I do believe that this, especially the 49ers, when it comes to a wide receiver, I do think that they would want more incentive-laden deal versus a highly guaranteed deal. So they'd probably want to keep the guarantees, I would say, actually probably between like 35 to 40 million based off of the numbers that you just stated, but then have the incentives as far as playing time, catches, yards, touchdown, all that kind of stuff that could make him, even higher. You know what I mean? So I think that's one aspect that you mentioned that's very true. I think the other place that the 49ers are coming from is they have some unknowns on their team as well that can affect the way that the receivers play, right? They have a quarterback in Trey Lance who, if he's anything like the team may have projected him to be, like a great player that could elevate the receivers around him, then the paying a top wide receiver the type of money that maybe Debo's asking for doesn't make a lot of sense, because you don't need to pay a receiver Devante Adams money when you have Aaron Rodgers, right? You don't need to pay a receiver Tyreek Hill money when you have Patrick Mahomes. Well, the 49ers don't know what they have in Trey Lance. If Trey Lance is the level of these guys or anywhere close to that, maybe they don't need a $30 million receiver on their books, right? The second thing is they got a guy in Brandon Nyuk who could be a legit bona fide wide receiver one that they still have on a team-friendly deal for another 2 years because he was drafted in the first round. So they have that fifth-year option with when it comes to Ayuk. So if they're looking at it and they're saying, okay, well, do we really want to overpay for a receiver when we have another guy who we think could be just as good, possibly, maybe in their mind, with a quarterback that could probably make a lot of talent that much better, along with the fact that it seems like receivers now are starting to come in waves from college that are immediately able to make an impact into the NFL game without much of a process, right? We're seeing guys like Jefferson, Jamar Chase, guys like that are able to come in and make an instant impact straight from college. Maybe they're looking at it and they're saying, okay, this position might somewhat turn into how running back position is turned into, Jose, where it's like you're not going to see running backs unless you're like super elite, like top 0.5 percentile, get paid big money. Because you could bring in a rookie running back and he come in and give you the same type of production as some of the top running backs in the game. And you're seeing what happened with Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott, and that's looking like a worse and worse contract every single year. So maybe the 49ers are looking at it and saying, all right, well, maybe the wide receiver position is going to turn into the running back position, and with all of this talent coming in. So maybe we want to be a couple years ahead of that trend versus behind that trend, giving the money to a guy like Debo.
And I think another thing you got to factor in about the quarterback being someone as elevator, the play caller counts too. You know, that's why Kyle Shanahan gets paid the big bucks, not just to develop these guys, which he doesn't really do too much of. It's scheming them open. So, I mean, it's not like Debo is like a refined route runner in that sense. It's just that's why everything's pretty much short. You just get him the ball so that way he can do his most damage. But, you know, I think if I'm going to go to your side, like I was saying earlier, like the 49ers are looking at all those positions that they guaranteed the highest to. All those were like, you know, impactful positions. You know, one of the more literally probably the top 5 positions in the game outside of cornerback was listed in there. So you're gonna pay all those guarantees almost double what you do Trent Williams to a wide receiver. You know, forget the running back point that I was playing, but wide receiver, because I think, you know, if you're the 49ers, you're not gonna want to use Debo the same way you did with him last year, because that's not sustainable. And, you know, he's already shown a little bit gimpy at times in his career, so you don't want to keep doing that. I mean, plus, you know, Kyle Shanahan running back, since Shanahan's been here, every running back's literally been dinged up. So that's why I don't like the whole like just pick on Raheem Mostert thing, because every running back's missed some time running the ball under Kyle Shanahan, whatever that has to mean, but definitely is a pattern there. So I think for the 49ers, it's, yes, we want to steer you more towards wide receiver, but the thing is, Debo, look, man, you haven't done what AJ Brown's done. You haven't done what a DK's done, or especially God knows a Devante Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill. So how do you expect us to make you this, you know, one of the top or even in that realm when you haven't done it as long? You know, the other guys, we feel comfortable inking them to these deals, investing them because we know what's up with them. You know, it's unfortunate because you had that, you know, last year, and you showed promise for one half of your rookie season, and you just blossomed into this stud last year. But the reality is, you know, you didn't do that as a wide receiver. You did that as a running back, essentially. And as, you know, successful you were as a wide receiver. So that's why I think I would definitely agree with you. I think that's what the 49ers are looking for, that 35 around 40-ish realms and guarantee. I just think if they're going to have to push out of their own comfort zone and try to make Debo happy, they'd have to look around towards that 50 and 60 range, which is pretty freaking high. But it's still something that could probably make him be like, all right, that's fine, you know, especially with the salary cap going up in the future. I just don't know if that's something, you know, Kyle Shanahan himself views wide receiver, because, you know, he did tell Debo, I've already turned you into a running back. And if anyone can surmise how Kyle Shanahan views the running back position, it's very interchangeable. So if he views that and maybe he thinks Deebo Samuel's interchangeable, I don't think he is. He's a very unique player. It's just they're in a tough spot, because if you don't pay him and say you want him to ride it out his last year, what if Debo just then all of a sudden my one hypothesis comes out true that, hey, look, he's going to demand a trade. Who are you going to replace that talent with? I know you said the draft, but there's no way that player is going to be anywhere close to the same impact as Debo was last year now. So it kind of feels like their hands forced to accommodate more so with him. So that's why I think where the leverage really not on the 49ers side, because
we'll see. Well, let's move into that. Obviously, you can't stick to the script, Jose, but let's transition into going from the team's perspective to how's Debo and his team moving into negotiations. And Kylie Young kind of is already, you know, speaking on behalf of Debo. True, but Debo's different. He's a home run hitter who's versatile, can take it to the crib anytime or anywhere he touches the rock. So where the team might be coming in and saying, hey, you know, your position isn't necessarily as impactful as a left tackle, quarterback, or, you know, all these other positions. Debo's team is probably coming in and saying, all right, that's cool for a wide receiver, but I'm a wide back, right? So the way that I've carried this offense, I am just as impactful. In fact, I may be more impactful than any other person on this offense. So, Jose, now let's go. You were already kind of going down that lane. Now you're on Debo. You're representing Debo. You're coming from Debo's perspective. What is his negotiating tactic when he's going to the 49ers front office, talking about why he deserves the type of money he's demanding?
Yeah, it's exactly with that. It's like, great. Like, those are impactful positions, and those players are really, really great players, really good players that, you know, if the Niners would just spew them out, look, these are the numbers. But hey, like, I'm just not your simple running back. I'm not your simple wide receiver. I'm a wide back. I'm an offensive weapon. Did you not see me out there in the second half of the season? I'm literally a large reason why we made it to the playoffs. And as soon as you didn't give me the ball, things went stagnant. You know, where I was the number one, you know, Elijah Mitchell was my number two. And, you know, so it was pretty much me, a unique weapon. So if the 49ers want to go that route, which I think they're going to go, try to lean more towards that running back number, like, because that's where pretty much where he has most success. Deebo's camp is just going to counter, and this is where I think the negotiation gets tricky, where he's going to say, look, hey, I think the fact that I can do both at a very high level and be an all-pro says more than that. And where I think they're going to flip it on them when the 49ers are going to try to touch up on the running back is Deebo. Drew Rosenhaus going to be like, I didn't get an all-pro for running back. Where's my all-pro for running back? I got all-pro wide receiver, bro. I got all-pro wide receiver. I got the stats for it. Even though we weren't winning the first half of the season, was that because of me? You're gonna blame me because I was doing my job at a high level? That's great. You moved me. You made one move. And where I can get the ball in my hands at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, and I made the most of it. So pretty much everything you threw in front of me, I made the most of it. Hence why I'm worth almost, if not the same or more, as those guys that are getting paid right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm Deebo, I'm coming out and being like, look, my rookie season, I played 15 out of 16 games. I had over 800 yards receiving in my rookie year, right? My second year, I was training and I had an injury. Clearly, that is something that happens. It wasn't because I was off doing something reckless. I was training. I was working to get myself in shape. And that's why my second season wasn't the way that, we wanted it to be. My third season in the league, which was this last year, I played, I missed only one game. I had over 1,400 yards receiving. I had over 8 rushing touchdowns. And I basically carried this offense. I left everything on the field. So I've proven that I'm able to stay healthy. I've proven that, I've been able to progress year after year after year. And what would this offense have been if it wasn't for me? I was there to fix the running game when the running game wasn't working well. I was already fixing the passing game when the passing game wasn't there. We weren't able to move the ball unless I was involved. So and you already had me on a rookie contract last season. Yet I was more impactful than anybody that you paid big money for. Now you're asking me to go into my 4th year making, I think, what is his contract? He's a 2nd-round draft pick. So I think it's around $6 million a year, probably $6 million, something like that. So he's looking at it and saying, why should I go out here and play at the style of football that I play and do the things that I do when you're paying me less than, guys that are sitting on the bench, not even doing anything that like I do. You're paying a fullback who doesn't have nearly the impact that I have moving this offense, much more than you're paying me, right? So and if I'm Deebo, I'm saying, look, George Kittle has more injury issues than I do, and you were willing to give him more. You were willing to make him the highest paid at his position, and you even extended him this season to give him even more guaranteed money, even though he's still not been able to prove that he could stay healthy for a full season as well. So miss me with all of that. It's because I'm not a healthy player. You've been able to pay guys much better. Jimmy has been in and out of the lineup. That gave you no pause to give him the type of money that you gave him, and you're still paying him even though he's not even going to be the starter. You still have him on the books for $27 million this year. So it's like, you can miss me with all of that. Oh, I'm not healthy. I'm not this. I'm not that. How are you going to replace my production without me? And why should I have to sit here and beg for money when you know I'm already underpaid? So I'm not sitting here and saying I deserve this type of money because I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. You just saw a Christian Kirk get offered 21 million APY. You just saw Brandon Cooks be given, money at 20 APY. You saw Devante Adams get a big contract. You saw Tyreek Hill get a big contract. It's just the market at this point. I am one of the best wide receivers in the game. The best wide receivers are getting paid this much money, and I deserve to be paid this much money at the time. And if I'm Deebo, that's how I'm negotiating with the 49ers.
And if I'm the 49ers, I'm flipping. That's great, Deebo. You did it for 1 year.
No, we're still on Debo. So tell me more about what Debo's doing.
I know, but that's so hard. It's hard to go both.
Thank you, Callie Young.
If you're Debo, you're exactly nailing that points. You're hitting on that. And I think ultimately, so even if the 49ers use that comeback, which it's gonna work, to a degree at least, I think.
You're right, because Tavarius is saying the same thing. Sub guys, if I'm the 49ers, I'm not paying Debo this offseason. I have to see how he plays this year. If I'm Debo, I want my money now due to me being 27 and injury prone.
All right.
So go ahead.
With the 49ers, would you let if you're the 49ers, would you want to let him play out your final year of the deal? You can't do that. I don't think you can do that. And people say like, why not? He's under contract. You franchise tag him. It's like, all right, yeah, you're gonna franchise tag him, and then you already pissed him off by letting him play on the final year of your deal, and you're gonna franchise tag him. That's literally the two most ultimate disrespect fu things you could do to a star player in this league, especially if he actually does do similar in 2022 that he did last season. So to me, I don't think you can let him play the last year of the extension, even though I pointed that out. But to me, I think
and Jose, the 49ers aren't big franchise taggers. I don't think they've even used the franchise tag in. Have they even used it for this regime? I don't know if they've even used it on. Yeah, I don't think they've used it on a player outside of Robbie Gould ever. Like,
plus, I don't think they want to do that because if they franchise tag it, they got to do it at a number that's not something they control. I mean, they know what it is, but it's not a number that they can set. They have to do the league averages, which he's going to be hella highly paid. But I digress. I just think that's where you're going to have Deebo's side that stems on where he's going to put his feet in the sand and say, if I don't show up and if I want to trade, what are you going to do? And that's when the Niners are going to be like, hey, only 1 year, we're only going to pay you this. But I think ultimately that's where I think the leverage is more so on Deebo's side in this case, is the fact that he could demand a trade, stop, slam, and he can't get the way he wants. The star players, a lot of times when they demand the trade, almost get what they want. It's becoming a little bit more NBA-esque the last 3 to 4 years in the NFL, where if you're like a star player, if you do enough kicking and streaming and pull the right buttons, you're going to get traded. And I mean, the 49ers, I don't think you have to do much. I don't even think you need to do that. I just think that you need to hold on to your stance about what you're worth, like DeForest Buckner did. And that's all you need to do is to get traded. Because then the 49ers know, like, all right, he doesn't want to play under this. I mean, they could just say like, oh, this catches bluff and let him play it out. Because they could kind of do that, but then are you going to want that, maybe not distraction to be the word, that drama, whatever that, that's lingering over you with him, that little ill will. Are you guys going to be able to swallow all that struggle and the negotiations in the off season to be able just to focus on the goal at hand? I think that's why teams want to get those extensions done by training camp. So that way, all right, we're not thinking of it anymore. The off season's over. We got one goal, no money, nothing. That's it. That's why extensions in general don't really get too done often in the middle of the season when someone's entering the last year of the deals, because we're focused here. So Deebo's side is pretty much, I think that's where he has the advantage is, man, it's like, yeah, don't pay him that. And I'm on the side of like, he's not worth that. He's only had 1 year. So I'm on the 49ers side of that. But who are they going to? There's no one. There's no one in the draft. You're going to be able to find that that impact.
So is there a compromise, Jose? So obviously we laid out both sides. Is there a way that, because I think everybody, whether it be the 49ers team, Deebo's side, everybody, though, if Deebo goes into this next year getting paid what he's getting paid, he is severely underpaid with the type of production that he puts up for the team, right? So is there a compromise where maybe not a long-term extension, but maybe like what they did with Mostert, where they gave him, more money, knowing that his production has changed, right, based off of the contract that they had, right? Because I think Mostert was getting paid, like under $1 million or something like that, and then they ended up paying him like $3 to $5 million, something like that, when he was holding out. Is there a way that maybe they could give him like a 1 year or 2 year extension, increase his guaranteed money, get him where he's like more consistent with the upper echelon receivers, not necessarily the highest receivers, but at least, in that realm where he's getting paid closer to what his impact is? And is that something that maybe both sides could come to an agreement with, knowing that maybe kicking the can down the line when it goes up, maybe even Deebo could get paid even higher versus taking all that money right now?
Hell no, that wouldn't work. For the 49ers, would love to do that. But there's no way Deebo is going to accept that. There's no way. This is now the time where he wants to see the money now. I mean, look, you said it. He specifically deleted all his Niner things. I mean, maybe I'm running before I walk here, but still, that says something. It's like if it's trending the direction that we think it's going, especially you think it's going, then no, he wants his money now. He's already impatient. You're gonna come to the negotiation table like, Deebo, we're gonna kick up your base salary to $3-4 million. Here's $6 more and $6 more million guaranteed and incentives. Like, he's gonna look at it like, what the hell is this? What is
What
it?
if it's
No,
closer to 20 million though?
Addition deal.
What if it's closer to 20 million?
No, he's not gonna do it. I see no way in
Okay.
hell why you would. I wouldn't do that if I'm Debo. I mean, that's
Okay.
nuts. I mean, he's seeing all this. He's gonna continue to hold on to these feelings. And if he doesn't, he's gonna write it on a wall or something, write it on his paper, tattoo it on his arm, and be like, "Gotta remember, these receivers
Right.
need this money. I gotta see it." You know, like when Mike Jones put his number on his forearm and stuff like that. That's
Right.
the number. Except Debo's gonna have the salaries and guarantees of the top 5 receivers in the league. He's not gonna forget that. This is his time to cash out. And this
Okay,
is
so if there is
market.
so Jose, if there is no way to compromise, so then what are the implications if this extension doesn't happen, right? What are the implications for the team? What are the implications for Debo? So let's start first for Debo. What are the implications if this extension doesn't happen for Debo? What are his options? And because I think it's clear that he can't go into next year getting paid the type of money that he's getting paid, right? Going into the last year of his contract, he needs to know based off of his impact for the team, based off of what he's worth. It's just not smart for him to go into a contract where he's getting paid, I think it's somewhere between 5 and 9 million, for the year. There's no way he could go and play for that money. It just doesn't make sense for him, right? So what are the implications and what are his options?
Well, of course, the demand to trade, number one. I think I don't think.
Well, first is hold out, right? First option would be hold out.
Hold out. He's going to try to, but how long is he going to hold out for? Because he's going to get fined 40 grand or some large number, and you just said he's getting paid a very, very low number a year. If he holds out long enough, then goddamn, you pretty much just took like a third discount of your salary, and isn't that the point of why you want an extension? So you don't have to lose money, you can gain it exponentially. Now you're losing it. I think that's of course the holdout, but I think at that point, I don't even think he's gonna hold out. I think if it gets to training camp, to training camp inside of it, I think if there's nothing traction, I feel like at that point you're gonna really be at a bad mood of what the offers are, because by the time training camp comes, that's usually where the 49ers and the sides, Fred Warner, George Kittle, that's when they pretty much know where they're at. And at that point, it was all, I think that's where always the rumors came out, like, hey, it was just the fine details, the final year, whatever, some verbiage, whatever, just messing around that they had to hash out. So if they're not anywhere close by then I don't even think a holdout's on the table. I think they're just going to outright just ask for a trade. I mean, because they know that there will be a market for him. I mean, look what happened 2-3 weeks ago. Jets fans found my article and they all think they have a chance on him now.
Right.
Which is nuts.
You started this, bro. You started this. So then let's flip it to the team, right?
For sure, one place that he can go to, or the Colts, or whoever. So he will have a market, and
so there are obviously teams that would be salivating for the opportunity. I think Hello Ladies, great name by the way. Jets are salivating for Debo. You just brought that up. Obviously, that's the clear probably front runners. Familiarity with the coaching staff there. They run a similar type offense. They obviously know. They obviously know what he's capable of with Salah and who's over there too? LeFleur. Callie Young's on me. Blame Jose. Yes, we are starting the Blame Jose fan train. But let's go from the team, right? So what would be the implications if they just gave him the bag? Let's just say that. What if they give him the type of money he's asking for? What are the implications for the team with that? And then what are the implications if they decide, to trade him?
Well, if they give him the bag, then it pretty much just goes. It's going to add on to pretty much what they've been doing with George Kittle and Fred Warner. I think that's pretty much what everyone said. Like, if you're the 49ers, you have to extend these guys to nice, good deals, entering before they even start playing on their final year of the deal. Because, like I said, they got done beginning of training camp around that timeline. Fred Warner, Kittle, and why? Because it sends a message. It sends a message to future players who come, we get drafted, like, hey, be patient with us, which, I know I was one person who said, like, hey, signing Kittle and Warner this time, when they're on the final year of the deal, to send a message that shows players like, hey, look, don't worry, we'll take care of you. Clearly it's not working with Debo because he knows that's happening and he's over there. He's apparently a little upset right now. But I think applications when he gets the bag is great. Now you keep your best offensive weapon. 2022 should be a good year. It's going to be a better round out situation to develop Trey Lance, because you do keep on a great stud, and that's pretty much you want. You want to keep as much talented players on the roster, and the fact that they didn't really go after anyone high priced, high named in free agency, it kind of feels like that this is good that you keep on a player of that caliber. So I think if you give him the bag, then great. But now you kind of set yourself up in the future for other players who could be due. So who can that be in mind? Maybe like you mentioned already, Ayuk. I mean, that's very along the line because you still have his 5th-year option to pick up since he was a first-round pick. And he's entering year 3. So that'd be someone if Ayuk does flourish under Trey Lance. Who else is there? I mean, maybe Elijah Mitchell if he balls out, although the 49ers are not going to pay a running back like that.
Right.
There's just a lot of talented players at that point. When you do that, you're pretty much setting the bar for wide receivers. So I think it'd be more so because if you pay Debo that now, that's pretty much setting you up in the future for what you're going to pay Ayuk. And are you going to have 2 high-priced wide receivers like that? I don't think anyone really does it.
Yeah, usually you don't see that too much, right? You don't see 2 legit wide receiver 1 getting paid at the same time. So clearly you're right. I mean, the implications of giving Debo the bag is more and more likely that when it comes time for Brandon Ayuk to be up for a trade, one of those guys are probably going to get traded, right? So you're probably not going to have both receivers on your roster when Brandon Ayuk. It's going to be one of those Kobe and Shaq moments where you got to choose which one you're going to go with. But let's talk about, if there was if this goes to where they just can't come to terms as far as get close enough with money, and they have to do a trade, what would be the asking price, and what would you think would be what do you think you could get for Debo on the free market right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, well, of course, Jets, what's up? Come on, give us that 10th round pick or that 10th.
And I guess let's look at it because there's been obviously some big name receivers traded in the past.
They've all gone for one, at least one. So
let's go back, right? So there was obviously D Hopkins didn't go for a 1, right? It was like a 3rd, 5th, and a player, or something like that, or a 2nd, 5th, and a player.
Bill O.B. was on some stuff. That was
right. But let's just, I mean, it's got to be factored into the equation though. So Hopkins, I think, went for like a 2nd or a 3rd and a 5th plus a player. Then you had Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs went for. Did he go for a 1? He possibly could have gotten 1. Went for a 1. Who else have we seen move? Obviously, Brandon Cooks just got. We've seen a lot of top wide receivers go for like a 5th pick, right? 5th pick. Not Cooks. Who's the guy from the Rams that just got traded?
Robert Woods.
Didn't he go for a 5th?
Isn't he on a torn ACL? That's not the same.
I mean, but we're saying like there was another receiver that went for a 5th too. I'm missing his name right. Oh, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper went to the Browns for.
Didn't he have a terrible contract, dude? All these ones you're listing.
Right, but look, terrible contract.
That's what teams are going to look at.
But also with Debo, if you trade for him, you got to break him off a huge sum of money too. It's not just a trade. You got to trade and extend him, right? But but then let's talk about Devante Adams. Obviously, went for a 1st, and it was
first, 2nd, and like other stupid day 3 picks.
Right, and then obviously Tyreek Hill just went for 5 picks, a 1st, a 2nd. And I think 4 of those picks were in the top 4 rounds.
Did they get 2 2s?
I think it was a 1st and a 2nd, and then they got like I think 4 of them were in the top 4 rounds, and then they were all like the other 2 were something like 6th round, 7th round pick. So, anyways, we're talking about a huge sum, at least as far as number of picks. But let's talk about what do you think Debo could get, because like you mentioned, Devante Adams and Tyreek Hill have had more longevity as far as success, but Debo's younger. So, how would you price out what you could get for Debo?
I'm not listening or accepting the trade at anything less than a 1st, to be honest. I probably will just lower the haul that those other players got. Those other players garnered, like Hill, with those 4 to 5 picks. If I can get the Jets, I think they have the 10th. They have some pick, maybe not the high.
Yeah, they have the 10th
first round. I think
they have the 10th and the 15th, or the 6th and the 10th. I'm not sure.
I think it's the 6th and the 10th. So if you say the Jets are not going to give them a 6th, no way in hell. But maybe the 10th, because since that's later on, and you have less choice of players by then. You take the 10th, that's great value because a top 10 pick, first round pick. I know it's not top heavy, so maybe that's why the Jets would be more leaning towards like, okay, we can get rid of it because we're getting Deebo freaking Samuel. You serious right now?
Mm-hmm.
So you get that, and you mentioned like, hey, you got to pay him, but it's great. Yeah, pay him because look, you have a young quarterback, Zach Wilson, who really needs help. He needs a lot of help. He needs proven players immediately, and that roster is completely depleted offensively of talent. They have no one that's going to help elevate his talent. Everyone's young that needs to grow. So at least then you have someone there like a nice linchpin cornerstone you have familiar with on the floor where you can utilize them and maybe get something similar to get, hopefully the same type of impact you're hoping. That's why you're trading for him. So the 10th round, why do I keep saying 10th round pick? 10th overall pick, the 10th round, the 10th overall pick, that would be great. And maybe just some change. Like at that point, I wouldn't even care what else you're getting. Maybe you can get a second. Well, hopefully you get a second, a third, like a haul of like 2 to 3 other picks. That's where you listen and maybe talk yourself into, we can do this. Let's make this trade. We don't want to pay him this. We do. Maybe if we had another year. I think that's what you're looking at. The Jets perfectly out of conference, East Coast. You get a decent haul. You put him in a situation where there's some familiarity, at least with the head coach. I know it's defense, but some familiarity. You got LaFleur. So I think that's what you're looking at for sure. First, that's where I want to key on. And at that point, you just try to figure out if you can like steal another linchpin third round pick or a second round pick, some of that sort. It wouldn't be anywhere as high as like a Hill, but maybe close to that in terms of wages because the Jets, not like the Jets front office is really too keen on those picks. That's why there's already been rumor that they're looking at DK, AJ, and Samuel. So they're definitely going to try to jump on one of these guys if they're available.
Yeah, and I definitely think multiple top 2 round picks, I would say has to be the minimum, right? You got to get a first rounder, and probably if you could, because I think the Jets have multiple first round picks maybe the next few years. So if the 49ers could get 2 first rounds out of it, I think you definitely got to think about it because you don't have first round picks for the next 2 years. So if you could get
picks, I'll go there and accept the trade.
Right. So and obviously I think step one, I think both of us agree I would rather have Debo on the team than not have him on the team. Yeah. So this is we're mentioning if for some reason they just can't come to terms with the contract. So 2 first rounds obviously would be no brainer, but first and a second I think would have to be at least part of it, right? A first and a future second, this year's first, future second, and then maybe some 5th, 6th round picks or whatever the case may be.
You have to offer that first round even for the 49ers just to listen because you're not offering at least 1 first round pick. The 49ers are not picking up your call. They're hanging up before you even think about calling.
Right. And I do think that, I think the Jets were reported that they were shopping that first round pick, one of those first or that 10th round pick to even get Hill. So I think that they're willing to part ways with that if it means a receiver that would, help out their young quarterback and add some life to an offense that definitely needs it, especially with what's happening with that division right now. So, I think the Jets would probably be a no-brainer and that would probably be the best fit. But, you never know. There's some dark horses out there that you just don't think about that could come out of the woodwork and hopefully, raise the price there. And speaking of that, let's end on this, Jose. Who do you feel like would get traded first, Jimmy or Debo?
I think Debo. I think Debo traded first because it's not because so much I believe he's going to get traded. It's so much because Jimmy's not going to get traded. What's his market? What is it? A cactus? We're gonna have a cactus. Like we're gonna trade him for some nopales out there or something. Like, what the hell? What is this market? If he didn't have a market now, why do the 49ers think he's gonna have a market in training camp? It's not gonna be existent. Then they're gonna have to cut him. So come on, dude. What are we doing here? So that's why I think Debo. Look, I think it's gonna be Debo just because it's more so Jimmy than him. Now, if I really start to walk it down in terms of past Jimmy, then it is because of Debo because of what I keep saying. The negotiations are so complicated. Look, you just said the 49ers are going to be looking around like a $40 million guaranteed, and I went even a step further and said 50, and I don't even know if that's enough. That might be for him to be like, you serious right now? What is this? You come to me and disrespect me in my house and give me this offer? Like, what is this type of thing? That's where I think it's really going to be the fine line where who's going to cross it. Who's going to cross into that point of, hey, is the price point worth it? And that's where the 49ers are going to be like, look, man, it's not that we're not unable to pay you. It's that we're not willing to pay you, that we don't value your position, you that highly. It's great you had that 1 year, but if you had that second year, you're great, you'd be good. So, sayonara, Debo, and then, just cut Jimmy at that point. Or, hey, now that you lost Debo's contract, now you can afford to keep Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, I think just as far as value right now, or who would be more valuable to the league, clearly I think Debo has more value.
That's crazy. You're saying that to a quarterback? I just said
it's not necessarily because the position. I'm just saying most teams have already kind of figured out their quarterback position. Is Jimmy that much more of an upgrade than what's already on their roster, especially at that price point, especially not knowing how he's going to come back after that shoulder surgery? I think that's more the case than just like Jimmy the player. It's like Jimmy the player coming off of surgery with people already kind of figured out what their quarterback situation is. So I don't think unless a quarterback, and I'll knock on wood because I don't want to wish this on any team, but like if a quarterback gets injured, then obviously Jimmy then becomes, maybe more valuable because you have a starting level quarterback that's still available, right? But without that, just if we're keeping it as is right now, Debo definitely has more value because more teams can bring in there's more teams that need a bona fide wide receiver one, and Debo would be an upgrade for a lot of teams as far as their wide receiver one. Debo would be an upgrade on that. So definitely I think that who gets traded first, I'm agreeing with you. I think it's Debo because I maybe I'm an over exaggerator. I know a lot of people, kill me for it, but I don't think Debo comes back to the 49ers, my dude. I think the fact that he scrubbed, because the fact that he took everything off of IG, I think Debo's built different. I don't think he just does things for show. I think that he truly was upset about it. I mean, that's a lot of effort just to troll. That's a lot of effort, bro. He had a lot of 49er stuff.
Social media means a lot to people that age too.
Yeah, and especially him. He's on Instagram all the time. Like he's still on Instagram, showing his workouts, training with other football players and stuff like that. He's happy, and he hasn't discussed anything about the team. And so, like, for me, I think that's a big sign, and especially with the reports about how he's trying to get paid like the top non-quarterback player in the league. When you make a statement like that, you can't just come back and take $20 million a year. You know what I mean? Like you can't. Like people are just not going to take you serious, and I just don't think that Debo is that guy. I don't think he would allow those type of stories to come out. I don't think he would be doing this kind of stuff if he wasn't really about that life. So for me, no, and obviously knowing the history of the 49ers, they're not going to give a wide receiver $75 million guaranteed. That just means that the next player that comes up, right, Nick Bosa. Can you imagine what they're going to have to guarantee Bosa? Or like when
I think the 49ers have no problem guaring Bosa because his track record's proven, and that's exactly what's lacking with Samuel is the
but what I'm saying is if they do what Debo's asking for, they're not just resetting the positional market. Jose, is what I'm saying. They're resetting the player market. So if now all of a sudden they're doing it where they're going to give Debo the type of money that he's asking for, he's not talking about, I want to be the top wide receiver paid. He's talking about, I want to be the top player paid. And if they allow this type of behavior and then they kind of like buy into it and then like pay that out, now you're giving a precedent to when other players come up and they're in negotiations that they could just like do the same thing that Debo did, right? So I just think there's a lot of implications to how this plays out. Obviously emotions are high right now, so maybe Debo backs off, or no, maybe he's not. My guess is he doesn't though, man. I just think Debo's built different. I think that he has a certain lifestyle that he's looking for. I think that he's very confident in the type of player that he is. He's been underpaid for the last few years, and I think that he just wants to be maxed out. And I think the reason why he has the swagger that he has is because he has an ego. And I don't think that he backs off from that ego. And I don't think he has to, because I think that somebody will give him the type of money that he's looking for. And if it's not the 49ers, the Jets will, right? Or some other team will. So, I think Deebo's gone.
That's kind of wild. That report came out about him wanting to be the non-highest paid quarterback from someone who, like, from a random, what is that? The Colts, Titans, whatever. That's why I didn't want to, like, feed too much about that. But, I was going to ask you, but you kind of said it already. So, everyone's complaining about Twitter on there saying, like, oh, why don't you guys think the Niners are going to pay him? They can easily afford it. I mean, it's like, all right, no one's arguing if they can afford it. They can easily make it work. But are they willing to even just, and I'm being a little generous, just to go to that 70 million fine line mark, not even exceeding Tyreek Hills and others? Are they willing to go that? But you already just said no, not 75. But what about if we're teetering around 75, give or take plus or minus 5 million there?
That's 30 million more than they've guaranteed anybody else.
That's nuts. Yeah, that's why I don't see that happening.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to understand this team's mentality. This team has
worth that much right now. I don't think it's worth that right now.
This team is willing to make every, like, their stars the highest paid at their position. They did it with Kittle, they did it with Juszczyk, they did it with Trent, they did it with Fred. But it has to be on their terms. And if Deebo is not willing to, they can make Deebo's contract the highest paid, but it's going to be on the 49ers terms, which is 40 million guaranteed with incentive-laden deal with a lot of outs and stuff like that. And if Deebo doesn't want to play ball with that, I can understand. I'm not mad at Deebo. I'm not mad at the team. I just think that maybe these personalities might not, it just might be, time to move on. And I just think that I'm already on the record saying that I think Deebo doesn't come back, man. I think
both sides are right. Like, obviously, you're Deebo. You have to ask for the bag because, first of all, get rewarded. This is the not for long league.
Yeah.
And, like, I saw Vish mention, like, he has also a responsibility to reset the market for his peers. And it's like, that's a good point. Yeah, good thing about that. But ultimately, first and foremost, himself, take care of yourself first. And then from the 49ers side, it's like, I don't think it's that they don't want to pay him. I think they really wish 2020 was a good year by him so they could pay him because – again, it's just that 1 year. It's just that 1 year. You can't really argue 2019 is the same. I mean, because I consider that like the ascension. Like, great, he showed promising ascension, had some impact. 2020 wash. It really is the tale of 3 seasons for this guy. It's just like, even last, you can literally divvy up all his seasons into halves and show like, wow, 2020 there was some impact and he was gone. 2020 last year, running back, wide receiver. 2019, kind of rough the first half of the season. Emmanuel Sanders suddenly gets there midway. Boom, 2019 it soars for him. So it's really hard because especially when you compare Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle, and the players who they've actually signed lucrative deals to.
Yeah,
they have a track record. They're stacked. Those are the players you want to keep stacking on point. And even Trent, who wasn't theirs, no duh, he proved it, and he has a track record. And that's why I think it's going to be a no-brainer. They're going to, send the Brinks chunks to Bosa. Because, look, even with that 1 year of him showing it, and even he had, like, a little injury concerns before, I mean, he keeps dominating. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You're going to pay him. But Deebo, 1 year, his real worth is when you were using him as a running back, and now you're going to have to dial it back, his impact. And, I know that his market as a dial back receiver is going to be higher than that, but the reality is, he was at his peak of his powers in the offense when you made him that position. That's why it's like, there's so many variables here, man. So many angles they got to attack it from, try to find that ground point. That's where I think it's going to get tricky, where I think a trade is very realistically on the table. And look, you're thinking that's probably going to happen. I don't think, I'm not going to say, and definitely don't think it's going to happen. I'd lean towards it's not, because who the 49ers are going to replace him with, but I'm not going to be naive and say no. That's why I wrote the article in the first place. It's just wild, man. It's so hard.
Deebo's one of my favorite players on the team, so I would hate to see him go, but I just think he's built different, man. I think he's a very strong-minded individual, which is why he has the success that he has. He's very flashy type of dude, so I know he wants the money because, he has a kid, he has a family, and the style of football he plays, like, he knows that he's one bad hit away from injury, so he needs to get paid. This is his first chance to get paid, and I think he's going to maximize it, and he deserves to, man. I want him to get as much money as possible. And I truly believe he will get more money from a different team than he will with the 49ers. That's why I think he goes. That's why I think it ends up being a trade that at least the 49ers can get, assets back for, and then Debo gets the chance to go out there and get the type of money that he actually wants.
Where's Buckner all over again?
Right. And it's similar. It's more similar to the DeForest Buckner situation, right? Because a lot of people point to DeForest Buckner and say, oh, it was because they didn't want to pay. That's not true, right? They obviously are willing to pay players and all that kind of stuff. But when you have options, right? So they had DeForest Buckner and Armstead. So they ended up paying Armstead because they could move Armstead outside, inside, and he was a little less money than Buckner. So they let Buckner go. This is the same type of situation. They have Debo and they have Ayuk. So they have options where it's not like they have Debo and then nobody else behind him, right? So that's where I think then Debo becomes somebody who they can part ways with because they still have a wide receiver one in Brandon Ayuk, similar to what they did with DeForest Buckner. And not to mention they had Bosa as well, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's more similar to the DeForest Buckner situation, not because they're afraid to pay, but because they have options where they could bring in get a top 10 pick and, maybe replace that player with a younger, cheaper version, which is what
the reason why they traded him too is not all other than those contributing factors that did play a role for sure. But it's also like, are we going to pay you Aaron Donald money? We don't view that. We want to pay. We'll pay you this amount, but we're not going to touch that because, sure, we can do it, but just because I got the scratch doesn't mean I'm going to splurge it for no reason, bro.
Right.
Like, kind of like that, and the 49ers demonstrated that in free agency. Hey, we could cut Jimmy Garoppolo and give ourselves a ton of cap space, but just because we have that scratch doesn't mean we're going to use it.
Right.
We don't have to, So they've already proven that multiple times. They have their own value, their own way of doing things, their own price point. And if it exceeds that dramatically, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jose. Once again, great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking the time. I know, I know both of us are going to be doing the same thing later on this afternoon. We're watching the UFC pay-per-view. I'll probably be a lot more sober than you, though. But talk to us a little bit about what articles you got coming up and what the fandom could be looking for out of you this week.
Well, you guys just saw a sneak peek of us making the case to both sides for 49ers and Deebo Samuel's perspective. I'm essentially writing about, why the 49ers should pay Deebo Samuel. So I guess that'll be the side of, Deebo, and why they shouldn't pay Deebo Samuel out of the side of the, essentially the 49ers. And then today I got something coming out. Which coaching departure of the 49ers will sting the most? Which one by the season comes are gonna be like, damn, I kind of missed this guy, so get a sneak peek. I said Mike McDaniel. I think it's gonna be Mike McDaniel. Though Bobby Turner was a close second, just based off the off season looks, but that's essentially what I got going on right now.
I love it, man. Well, everybody in the comment section, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys definitely make the show go. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for taking the time out on a Saturday morning to kick it with us. Like I always say, stay healthy, stay safe, stay hydrated. Especially you, Jose. You stay hydrated today, my friend. Hey, and we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace.